Keith is 45 years old. He is single.
I'd always wanted to have a girlfriend and date in middle school, whatever that looks like in middle school, but as I got into high school, those affections started to change. And as a 15-year-old kid, I started struggling with SSA, same-sex attraction. And that was new to me, just keeping it to myself and fighting through it myself. I know it's not right. I don't like these feelings. I know it's not true of who you are. I know this is against what you say in your word. So why is this happening to me? And what did I do? And how do I change it? For a long time, man, I struggled with answering those questions because I didn't know how to change it. I'm going to grow out of this and I'm going to get married and I'm going to have kids and I'm going to be a father one day and I'm going to look forward to that day. So I'm just going to trust that I'm going to grow out of this. Our desires are corrupted. Everything was corrupted. Creation was corrupted. It all was corrupted. But the beautiful thing is that Jesus Christ brings redemption to all of it.
Do you think that if you never got married, like you'd be okay?
It's amazing, man, what Christ has done for us, what God has done for us. There's a beauty in trusting God with our life. Call me traditional. I'm not going to date to find a wife. I'm going to know that she's my wife. I'm going to know.
That's what happened in before the fall. God brought Eve to Adam.
Come on, dude. Let's go, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Welcome to the Single Man Podcast, where we delve into candid conversations with Christian men about their journey to faith, advice for their younger selves, and navigating dating. With a heart to reach men from all walks of life, dive into real stories of redemption, growth, and the hope found in following Jesus. I'm your host, Carlton, a 30-year-old single Christian, and I'm excited for you to listen to this week's episode. Let's jump into it. Hey everybody, it's Carlton French. Welcome back to the Single Man Podcast. I am really excited for today's episode. We have my good friend Keith Trollinger here today. Keith, how are you doing today?
Doing good. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me. It is a blessing to be here today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm blessed and honored to have you here. So I know we've been talking about having you come on for a few months, and you've been in Louisville, Kentucky, finishing up a degree in divinity. That's right. Yep. Which has been pretty cool to watch you do from afar. And then you're back here in Atlanta, and you're about to go out to pastor a church. And so I was like, oh, well, while you're here for a few weeks, I'd love to have you come on if you're available. And we're making it happen today.
Yeah, we are.
And I wanted to share how we first met. So Keith and I were both at Awaken Conference, which was a conference in Dallas, Texas, back in 2022. It was about like my 1-year anniversary of coming to faith myself, actually. I went, and there was this ministry there called The Porch, which was for young adults, but they like broadcast it on YouTube. And I would watch it every week as I was trying to figure out faith and what I believed. And when I saw they were doing a in-person conference, I was like, oh, I want to go to see it in person and celebrate. So just the power of being able to share stories and use technology to spread the word of God, impacted me back in 2021 as I was coming to faith. And I'm believing that the Single Man Podcast is doing that now to single men all over the world. So just grateful that you'd, I guess, want to continue to stay in touch with me since 2022, and been following along with the podcast. And I know it's been an encouragement to you. You were sharing as well, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a little bit about Keith for everyone that doesn't know him. Keith is 45 years old, which is awesome, and he is single, which is really awesome too. Originally from Conyers, Georgia, and most recently have lived in Carlton, kind of grown up in that part of Georgia, which is like an hour west of Atlanta. Yeah. Yep. And I'm from like 30 minutes north of Atlanta. So suburban Atlanta life. But you've been in ministry for the last 20 or so years.
20 years. Yeah.
Which is really cool. Worked with young adults through that time as well. And really big outdoors men. You like love hiking, hunting, and anything else I'm leaving out
No,
that you want the
man.
audience to know?
No, definitely love the outdoors. I don't even like to sit inside long. My apartment in Louisville, like I had a great balcony on the back deck, and I had to be outside all the time. I love being outside. Absolutely love to hike, 100%.
What's your favorite hike you've ever done?
Oh man, I would say on the East Coast, it's probably been Mount Mitchell, which is the highest peak on the East Coast.
Wow.
And then the Lord's allowed me to hike in some really cool parts of the world. I did a hike this past summer in Scotland called the Ben Nevis. It's a really good hike. And then Colorado, I love hiking 14ers. So just probably one of the most beautiful hikes out in California that I've done thus far is the DeCalibron, which is like 4 14ers, 4 peaks within one hike. So yeah,
oh wow,
it's awesome.
Okay,
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully that gives some inspiration to people that love hiking out
Yeah,
there.
man, come on.
So this last week, Keith, I'd love to have you share a little bit about this last week so people can get to know you more on a personal level. What's been a favorite and least favorite part?
Yeah, definitely the favorite is that I literally just got back from Colorado, and I took 2 guys that had just graduated high school. It was their senior trip, which
cool.
I was super honored that they would want to take me out there on their senior trip. They're guys that I've known for a long time, their families. And so, dude, we jumped on a plane. We flew out to Denver, drove into Keystone, and we did 7 14ers in 3 days, which is insane for those guys to knock that out.
What is a 14er for people listening that don't know what that is?
That's a great question. So Colorado has 52 peaks that are over 52, 53 peaks that are over 14,000 feet.
Oh, okay.
And so the goal, if you love to hike 14ers, the goal is to hike every single one of them. The further south you go in Colorado, the harder that they get. So these are particularly easy 14ers to hike. And so they were like, dude, we want to go out there. And so I was like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
And so they packed up and so we spent 3 good solid days hiking. The weather was absolutely gorgeous. They handled it well. Just shout out to my boy John and Eli.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, they handled it so incredibly. Usually, you worry about altitude sickness, but dude, it was a incredible hike. A lot of good spiritual conversations about the Lord and what the Lord was doing in all of our lives and what He's doing in their life, and just really good, solid guys. So yeah, it's been an incredible week. That was definitely the best thing that happened last week was our trip out to Colorado.
Yeah. I
would say the worst thing that happened last week is when I go to Colorado, Carlton, I never sleep good ever. And so for whatever reason, being at that altitude and just all the things that go through your mind when you're trying to prepare for a hike, I slept horrible. I think I probably got 15 hours of sleep over the 5 days that we were there.
Wow.
So that makes the hike a little bit more, crazy at times, but that would definitely be the worst thing is just not sleeping. So when I came home, I literally the last 3 nights I've crashed for like 10 hours plus every night. So it's been great.
Okay, good. Getting the sleep debt
yes,
recovered there.
That's right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad you made it today.
Yeah.
But well rested.
Yeah, 100%. Well rested, 100%.
Good. Well, we'd love to have you jump into your story, Keith, like how you came to know Jesus. Was that at a young age or later, and just what you think would help single men that are listening now? Well,
I would say I definitely had the blessing of growing up in the church. I know that's not everybody's story, but I had a mother and a father who were faithful to the local church, and they brought us, my sister, my brother, they brought us up in the local church back home in Conyers. And we were there, every Sunday, and we were there every Wednesday night. And it wasn't kind of a kicking and screaming thing either. We wanted to be there. And we got, as much out of being a part of the local church as we could. So when I was 12, I went out to camp, and I just knew at that point in my life that Jesus is who He says He was. And in July of 1992, 12 years old, I put my faith in Christ and received Him as my Lord and Savior. My dad baptized me that following Sunday.
Wow.
And so, I had a relatively just normal, incredible childhood growing up. But then also, being a part of the faith, there was never like a moment in my life where I was like, man, I have to turn from my sin and give my life to Christ because I'm not heading in a good direction. I think it was over time, the realization that no, this is what I need to do. I mean, I know who he is. I know that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And at the age of 12, as much as I could know as a 12-year-old, I knew that I needed to make that decision.
Yeah.
And and really not much, after that, I just continued to live faithfully as much as I could. And we'll get into my story in a second, but things did become a little bit more of a struggle, as I got into high school. But yeah, I would say, I mean, I knew enough to know that I needed Jesus Christ in my life at the age of 12.
Yeah.
Obviously I grew, more in understanding and knowledge, but yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how I came to faith.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so 12 years old, you're like middle school maybe?
Yeah. I think it was like 8th grade, right? 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just, living the dream of a 7th grader, 8th grader, enjoy. I mean, I enjoyed middle school and didn't really struggle with much of anything at that point in my life. Yeah.
And then, so you said high school, things started to pop up. There were struggles that happened.
Yeah.
So what was that like? And
how
did you navigate that?
Yeah. So high school was, I would say, apart from what I struggled with, high school was an incredible experience as well too. At a young age, I knew that I wanted to be a journalist. And, fast forward a little bit from high school, I actually was able to get into some of that as I was in my late teen and early 20s, working for Clear Channel in Atlanta and doing some sports on the radio and just kind of fulfilling my dream. Yeah. But a lot of that started in high school. So I had a really incredible experience in high school. But when I was, I say around the age of 15 because I can't specifically recall a date or a time, but I would say it was in between my freshman year and my sophomore year. I definitely started having some struggles that I was not normal. I didn't. They were some struggles that I knew were not right, and that I began to struggle with at the age of 15. And so, leading up to that, I had, I'd always wanted to have a girlfriend and date in middle school, whatever that looks like in middle school, but right. As I got into high school, those affections started to change. And as a 15-year-old kid, I started struggling with SSA, same-sex attraction. And that was new to me. And so, going through high school, like I said, I had a really successful high school life, and I was very much involved in my student ministry and a leader in my student ministry. And in large facet, I kind of had a big role to play in high school, and my high school as well too, with just some things that I was involved in. So at the age of 15, when I started struggling with these feelings or this desire, I was also at a place where I couldn't talk about it, And so, because I was afraid if I talked about it, then it would impact my role in my student ministry where I was a part of, and it would definitely impact just kind of my presence and my posture at my high school. And so so man, I kind of walked that out for a long time, just keeping it to myself and fighting through it myself. Yeah. At the age of 15, but I started having those struggles at 15, same-sex attraction, and
wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And willing to do that.
Yeah, man, no problem.
I've been hopeful that someone would come on and talk about this as part of the Single Man podcast. The 52 episodes I'm hoping to put out, and to this point, no one has come on to share about it, and I haven't had
yeah.
the opportunity to have someone come on. So for you to be vulnerable and sharing, because I know that a lot of men struggle and women struggle
For sure.
with this, and it's not really discussed much. And so, really grateful that you're like a living example of someone who had those desires. So when you talk about I think you said you use the word struggle.
Yeah.
So like when the struggle started, can you go back and think like, here's what started it, or was it just like random, you think? Or
No, that's a great question. Yeah, man, that's a really great question. I remember when I was in high school, there'd be many times at night when I would lay down, to go to sleep. And I vividly remember, again, growing up as a Christian, at this point, I'd been a follower of Christ. I was 12, so 15, 3 or 4 years, but relatively grew up in the church.
Right.
And Carlton, thankfully, at that age, I knew enough to know, okay, this doesn't fit with God. Like what I'm feeling, the desires that I have, I would read this later in life, but the desires that I have, God would never satisfy those desires, or he would satisfy those desires, but in his way, not in the way that I was struggling with. Right.
Yeah. And
so I knew at the age of 15, Carlton, that these desires that I had were not consistent with who God is. And so, and that was a struggle because, okay, so I know this is not right. I know that something is not, something, I don't know to use the word off if that's the right word, but to know that something is not right in me. But yet I can't talk about it. That was the struggle. It's like, okay, this isn't right. I don't like these feelings. I would lay in bed sometimes at night and I would plead with God to give me a struggle of like drugs or alcohol, something that was external that someone could see and say, oh, Keith needs help, versus something that I had to keep inside and I couldn't talk about it with anybody. That just brought up a lot of, hopeless thoughts of, okay, where is this coming from? Why is this happening to me? What did I do? Those were a lot of conversations that I would have with God. It's like, what did I do to deserve this? Did I miss something? Did I say something wrong? Like, I know it's not right. I don't like these feelings. I know it's not true of who you are. I know this is against what you say in your word. So why is this happening to me? And what did I do? And how do I change it? And so for a long time, man, I struggled with answering those questions because I didn't know how to change it. Growing up in the 90s, this was a place where you really couldn't talk about those things publicly. Yeah. And so I just had to grind through it. And I knew I wasn't going to act on it. I knew that because I knew that God wouldn't honor that. I didn't know how to formulate that in my mind, but I knew that God would not honor those feelings. Yeah. Same-sex attraction. Yeah. And so I had to, for a long time, it was like, I got to figure this out. Like I got to figure out what this looks like. And I just didn't know in high school. Yeah. And so I kept it quiet and I just put my nose to the grindstone and just, I think for the longest time, my prayer was, okay, I'm going to grow out of this. I think that was my thought. In fact, I know that was my thought. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to grow out of this and I'm going to get married and I'm going to have kids and I'm going to be a father one day and I'm going to look forward to that day. So I'm just going to trust that I'm going to grow out of this. And as a teenager, I think that's the only way that I knew how to have hope that I would eventually, that it would just leave me.
Wow. And then so you go to college and then start young adult life. And
Yeah.
Did you grow out of it or what was it? Yeah.
That's a great question. Yeah. Well, I'm 45 and still single. So, but no, I'm just kidding. But, so, I get out of high school and, at the age of 19, my mom and my dad, they found out and that I had this struggle for 4 years now. And
did you tell them?
I did. Yeah. I think the Lord brought it to the surface in his own unique way. And my mom and dad, they were very kind. I remember my mom and my dad just encouraging and loving me through it. That there was no abandonment. There was no, how could you, or any of that kind of stuff. I had parents who loved the Lord and and who also loved me through that struggle. And, there weren't a lot of resources during that time as far as like, okay, this is what we need to do. Right.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of was like, okay, let's pray and keep putting your faith in the Lord. And so I kept thinking, I'm going to grow out of this. I get into college. And I think I started to realize, Carlton, and this is important, that I needed to start sharing it with people that I trusted and people that were healthy, that I felt like were, when I say healthy, that they also had a fear of the Lord, and that I knew that I could trust them with that information. And so, 21, I remember sharing it with a guy at my undergrad program here in Atlanta, and man, it was that was like a breath of fresh air. And so as I continued to move out of college, I continued to share it with people that I trusted with in college. And then I get into full-time ministry, and I'm like, I need to keep bringing out. Yeah, it never needs to be in the dark. I need to continue to share this struggle with healthy men in my life, and specifically men that were healthy. And oftentimes they were men that were elders at the church, or they were on staff, or just men that I could trust. And so I really saw the value. I think the Lord gave me the wisdom to be like, hey, keep trusting me with who I bring in front of you, to keep sharing this with you, and as I continue to strengthen you.
Yeah.
And so somewhere around the age of 30, Carlton, I just realized that, okay, this is not going away. Like I'm not growing out of this like I thought I was going to grow out of this.
Right.
And it wasn't a kind of like, this is it, this is my lot in life, like this is horrible, kind of thing. It was more of, okay, Lord, then I have to trust you, with this. And I'd already been walking this out faithfully, but I think the Lord gave me handles to grab a hold of. And so it was like, okay, Lord, if this is not going away, then what does it look like for a follower of Christ to walk this out, until you decide to take it away?
Yeah.
And I read an article. I can't remember the exact author of the article, but I just remember in the article he was writing about people who struggled with SSA, that the telos, or the goal, is holiness. It's to be holy. And my late 20s, early 30s, when I read that was like a game changer for me, Carlton. It's like, okay, that's my telos, or that's the goal. It's to be holy.
Yeah.
And so I need to be holy in my life. I need to be holy in my actions. I need to be holy in my thoughts. I need to be holy in my relationships. And so that's what it means to be a faithful follower with someone who struggles with SSA, just like it means to be a faithful follower with someone who struggles with any kind of lust or pride or ego or gossip. It's to be holy. And I think for the first time in my life, I realized that I'm no different from anybody else, even though the church compartmentalizes it sometimes, because oftentimes I don't think they really know how to minister to people who are living in that lifestyle or who are coming out of it.
Right.
I think for the first time in my life, I just realized that, okay, like I don't have to compartmentalize this. I'm not alone in struggle. Like everybody struggles, and we're all called to be holy in our struggle. And I think the Lord just gave me some really strong handles to grab a hold of and say, Keith, keep being holy. Like this is, why, I'm like, Lord, I could have learned this a long time ago, but you're a providential God, so I trust you. And so that was a game changer for me, at that age in life. And that was, since then I've learned a ton, and I can get into that whenever, but that was, when I realized, okay, this is not going away. I'm not growing out of it, but the Lord's like, I just want you to be holy, Keith. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And that, Carlton, that means holiness in all things. And so, that realizing that unless the Lord changes my disposition, then I'll die a virgin, and maybe that's probably what's, unless the Lord changes it, I will die a virgin, today, but that's okay because my telos is not my sexuality. My telos is the Lord,
Wow.
So
really powerful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Man. And, again, just being vulnerable with your story. So do you think that, like, I want to, I guess, have it be relatable to men who maybe have people in their life that are struggling with same-sex attraction, or would say that they're, I don't know, like in the gay lifestyle or LGBT lifestyle. Did you ever have an interest in women ever, or it's always like from when you remember, like you've always just been interested in men? Like,
no, I did. Yeah, I did. Obviously, when I was a kid, man, I was, definitely had interest in women. And even today, the Lord, that's where, let me say this to say that, if I can back up a little bit.
Yeah.
I met with a professor friend of mine, and when I was up in Louisville, and we were eating Thai food, great Thai restaurant in Louisville, and we're sitting there having this conversation, and I wasn't really looking for the why anymore. Like, why had this happened? Why did I have these feelings that I knew were not consistent with the goodness of God? And I just remember he said to me, Keith, he goes, let me ask you this. He goes, either what has happened to you is accidental, or it's meant to harm you, or he said it's deliberate. And I just kind of sat back and I was like, okay. And he explained, Keith, that your struggle is not accidental, meaning that that I started having this struggle, and that our life is like a chess game with God, and God's like, okay, I got to figure out how to turn this into good. No, this is not a chess match with God where he's like, oh, I didn't see that coming, Keith. Now let me figure out how to turn this into good. So it's not accidental. And I believe that with all my heart. He said he goes, is it intended to hurt you? And that would definitely be of the enemy, right? Of Satan. And Satan is absolutely going to use our struggle, no matter whether it's gossip or pride or greed or whatever it may be. The enemy is going to use it to hurt us, to shame us.
Yeah.
He goes, but if it's deliberate, Keith, then there's purpose behind it. And so you've got to, for me, when he said that, man, I remember backing away from that table at the end of our conversation and thinking, because I believe in the providence of God. I don't believe that anything is accidental. And so I just remember thinking, okay, Lord, you've been deliberate. You've been purposeful with this struggle in my life, and there's purpose behind it. And I wanted to get up from that table and go to war with it. It's like that changes my perspective even more, that God, you're deliberate in giving me this struggle. It goes back to in 2 Corinthians 12, when 12:9, when Paul asked the Lord, he says, 3 times he asked the Lord, take this thorn that you've given me. And when you go back and read the text, I mean, Paul writes, he says, a messenger of Satan was sent to torment me, to keep me from being conceited. The reason why that language there is so important is because the messenger of Satan was sent to keep Paul from being conceited.
Yeah.
So Satan would never want Paul not to be conceited, right? So it has to be deliberate from the Lord, the thorn in Paul's side, to keep Paul from being conceited. So I know and believe that the Lord has allowed this or ordained this to happen to keep me from whatever I don't know. But what I do know is that it keeps me anchored into Him.
Yeah.
And so that means there's purpose behind it. I feel like I've walked away from your question. What was your initial?
No, that's great. Had you ever had an interest in women,
Yes,
or even
in women.
in your 45
So
years?
yeah, at times, the Lord will, like, I will see a female and I'll be like, man, I could totally marry her. At times, and then at times that goes away. And I just have to trust the Lord that if he chooses to remove that thorn, right, then he's going to give me the desire to be married. And I, the other thing that I have to trust that, but if not, then I'll continue to be faithful and, live an abstinent life, and live a life that is honoring to him in all that I do. And because I'm convicted and convinced that is the only way. But like you said, at times, yeah, for sure, man, the Lord gives me a desire and I'm like, all right, but it doesn't last too long, but I just have to trust the Lord in that, and for whatever reason, maybe the Lord wants me to remain single. It's hard, Carlton, but maybe the Lord wants me to remain single, and this is how he has determined that I remain single. But I want to say this, but he is good in that. And he is faithful in that. He is the giver of life to me. And so if he gave me life, then he can determine, he can determine what my struggle is, and so, my end goal in life is to glorify him with my life, and so if that means that
not to get married,
and to be single for the rest of my life, then I'm called to glorify God in my singleness. And if the way that God uses to keep me single is through, SSA, and I don't struggle with SSA every day. I don't struggle with it every month. But if God chooses to keep that thorn in my side, then that's God's prerogative to do that, because he has authority over my life. And I have to trust him in that. I have to trust that he is good. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people, but I have to trust him, and that there are greater goods that have come out of my life as a result of my suffering than would come out of my life had I not suffer with what I suffer with.
Wow.
And those greater goods are worth it. If that helps answer the question a little bit more.
Great. What do you think about your life to this point, Keith? 45 years old. I think you're the oldest person who's come on who's been single their whole life. I've had people that were previously married that have come on that have been in their 40s, but they've been divorced. So what do you think is different about your life now than before you knew Jesus? This is something I ask all the guests that come on, but you're growing up in the church, you came to know Jesus when you were 12, you said, but then like something changed when you were around 30 as well. That's a great question. So when I was I just remember in my late 20s, early 30s, there was a lot going on at that time in my life, where I was experiencing a lot of success in ministry, and but the Lord took it away from me like pretty quickly. The success?
Yeah, the success of it. And I just remember really at that, there was a short season of my life where I didn't really know what I was going to do next. And so it's like, okay, God, what are you doing? And the Lord was stripping me down to my core. And I remember I was out at this place called Amicalola Falls up in North Georgia doing some hiking for a day. And the Lord, as I was just reading through the Word, and the Lord, it was just so incredible, man. I was just reading through it, and I hit Philippians 4:19. I guess I was reading through the book of Philippians, and I hit Philippians 4:19. And Paul writes, he says specifically, "My God meets all my needs according to the glorious riches that are in Christ Jesus." And Carlton, at that turn in my life, God was saying to me, "Keith, I'm the one who meets your needs. Like, ministry doesn't meet your needs. People don't meet your needs. Success doesn't meet your needs. Money doesn't meet your needs. And if they meet your needs, it's because I'm the one who puts those things in your life." And so all that you have all that is good that is in your life, Keith, is a result of me, God. And it was so freeing. I remember vividly where I was sitting on the rocking chairs up at the top of Amiclo, behind Amiclo Falls, behind the little hotel up there, and I'm just sitting there rocking on the chairs, and I read that verse, and it's like, it was so freeing to me. I just like let the burden was lifted off of me. It's like, I don't have to pursue these things anymore. My identity is not in all of these things, my identity is in Christ and Christ alone. And so God, I don't have to pursue. I can just trust you with everything because you're going to meet my needs. And it goes back to what I was saying before, the way that you decide to meet those needs.
Yeah.
And so the Lord was and has always been faithful to meet my needs. And I just have to trust that he has the prerogative in how he's going to meet that need. And that was a big game changer in my life. That, and then the 2 Corinthians text is 12:9, when the Lord gave Paul the thorn. It's like, okay, God, like, I can trust you with my life. I can trust you with, and not only with the struggle with SSA, I'm just talking about life in general.
Yeah.
That I can trust you in all things, that you are good. And it has been since then that I've learned, that God is providential over my pain and my suffering, and that he's providential, and that out of that comes greater goods that never would have come had it not been for me going through and continue to go through pain and suffering in my life.
Yeah.
But he stands behind it. I'm never alone in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that was a huge shift in my life, for sure.
Wow. Really good.
Yeah.
And just was on your own reading the Bible, and that came to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've grown to understand more about how I feel, how I'm convicted, how God works in the world. But yeah. Philippians 4:19, and that morning, absolutely, 100%. Yeah. It's like, it was so freeing. It's like, man, I don't have to exhaust myself trying to pursue something that's exhausting. I can enjoy what the Lord puts before me. Yeah. Because it's for him and not for me.
Yeah. Really good. Wow.
I think I'll say this. I think I was telling somebody this the other day, that I think when you're exhausted, like, not in a good way, but when you're tired and just, oftentimes when we pursue things for our own glory, it's a bad exhaustion. When it's a good exhaustion, it's life-giving. It's because we're pursuing it for his glory. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Unpack that more, actually. So I feel like I get tired at times myself, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing, for example, when I turned 30 earlier this year, I did like a big party for my birthday. Yeah. And I was like really exhausted after that. Yeah. But it felt good. And I felt like it was what God wanted me to do for my birthday. Yeah. And people were encouraged by it. But was I doing that out of my own strength in a sense, or was that like what God wanted me to do? Yeah, no, I think, so like in that situation, that's probably a good exhaustion, right? Okay. Because it's a life-giving exhaustion. You're in fellowship with your friends, and there's something beautiful about that, about being in healthy fellowship. And it's what I would argue for, like, biblical fellowship, where there's healthy conversation going on, and there's life. You guys are encouraging each other and loving each other and serving each other, right? In a healthy biblical way. Yeah. I think that's a good exhaustion at the end of the day, right? I think it's an unhealthy exhaustion when I'm pursuing something that's only for my benefit, or it's very selfish. Yeah. Or it's, I would encourage, if you guys haven't watched Carlton's very first inaugural episode, I mean, you nailed it. Like, you're pursuing things for your own end, right? You want the number of views to be, whatever. That's it. That's not a healthy, that's a bad exhaustion, because it's not life-giving, because you're trying to fill the hole yourself. Right. Like, you're trying to accomplish it on your own strength. And we were never meant to accomplish those things on our own strength. We were meant to accomplish those things with his strength, with the Holy Spirit living inside of us and guiding us and moving us. When we do things in our own strength, they become exhausting. Yeah. And they actually take away from human flourishing. Instead of adding to human flourishing, or flourishing the way that God created us to flourish. When you go, and I'm getting into some deeper things, but we were meant to flourish. And so when you
pursue things for your own selfish good, that's a bad exhaustion. It's not human flourishing. It's actually depleting. But when you pursue things for his good and for his glory, man, you're going to flourish as a human being. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's not exhausting. That's a good exhaustion when you come home. You're like, I'm tired, but man, this was an incredible night with my friends. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
I'd love to move into a question about advice you'd have for your younger self. So maybe you could speak specifically to 3 different age ranges of yourself, if that's okay. So first, maybe that age range, like 15 years old.
Yeah.
When you like first started to have the struggle of same-sex attraction. And then your like early mid 20-year-old self, what you would go back and tell that version of Keith. And then that 30-year-old version when you had that experience at the waterfall.
Yeah. Yeah. I would, if I was 15, I would definitely tell myself, like, chill out, Keith, calm down.
Yeah.
You know, I think at 15, 16, 17, 18, you know, even with young men that I disciple now, like, there's so many changes that are happening and they feel like they have to get everything in order, you know? And I'm like, I would tell myself, just chill out, calm down, like trust in the Lord, you know, be patient. And, cause it was tough. Again, as I said, I knew that, that struggle, that the Lord was never going to be okay with it.
Yeah.
And I've always, you know, that's not changed, but I think if I had just said, hey, it's okay, the Lord has you, Keith, trust him in this. That would have been huge. Yeah. Just, you know, step back and take a deep breath and trust the Father. I think you know, my 20s, I started asking the question, why? Like, why me? Yeah. What did I do to deserve this more? I think I started really pursuing why. What did I do wrong? And I realized something that I need to, because I felt like the only way that God was going to love me was that I was going to have to change my affections. So like, the only way that I was going to be approved by God was for me to start liking women. Yeah. And then God was going to, then I could get my life right with God. Cause I always felt like my life is never right. It's never right. It's never right. It's always, I'm falling short. I keep falling short. I'm falling up short. I'm never measuring up to God's standard until God's like, that's right. You are falling short, just like everybody's falling short. And, you know, that's where I really had to trust him with my affections, that was up to God if he's going to change my affections. But my posture is to trust him and to be holy. And so instead of trying to figure out why, it's like, man, the strength is in trusting God with the now, you know, and I don't mean to be cliche-ish or whatever, but the strength is in trusting him with what he has put before me deliberately. You know, I think I would tell myself, don't hang out in the why. Like, I think that's a part of the process. Yeah. But realize that you're probably not going to find the answer, and trust that God is good and that his purposes are greater, are much greater than you finding out the why. And so I would definitely tell myself, don't look for the why. After that, after 30, you know, once I really started, I think, to really just, things started to come together. You know, I don't know what I would tell myself. I think, I mean, I felt like I was really, you know, at that age, I was really, you know, just learning how to walk and be even more faithful. You know, I don't know that I have a good answer for that, you know, at the age of 30, like, what would I tell myself? Because I really started to understand God's goodness in the midst of suffering at 30. And And so, I mean, I do believe in the providence of God. So I do believe that everything that happened and has always happened has been purposeful, you know. So I don't know. That's not, I don't know how to answer that, the 30, because I feel like the Lord has given me.
Just keep being faithful.
Yeah, just keep being faithful. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's encouraging to everyone that is listening.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people that maybe have same-sex attraction themselves or know someone that does, or it can be more relatable to people in the future if they come across someone. And yeah, I think that's awesome that you're able to talk through those different stages.
I know can I say this real quick?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. I do think this is important with someone who's struggling with SSA.
Yeah.
A lot of times people that are living in that lifestyle, and fortunately, I mean, I'm incredibly thankful that I've never been in a relationship, emotionally, physically, sexually, anything, never in my entire life. And I'm thankful for that. And I do believe Psalm 121, the Lord has kept me. And I know a lot of people can say, well, he hasn't kept me. I mean, I've gone into this lifestyle, I've embraced it, or I have, crossed over that threshold into it. And I would just say, okay, we have to start at some place. And I think a lot of the confusion is that, I use this word telos, which means sort of the goal of life. And I think a lot of people, whether they are struggling with SSA or whether they are heterosexual, that are just living up in Atlanta or wherever, New York, whatever city, and they're just living their life, right?
Right.
A lot of times their sexuality is their telos. It's like, I just want to get as much as I can. And that's not your goal. That's not your identity. For someone who struggles with SSA, for them to say, well, my identity is my sexuality, it should be no different than someone who's heterosexual, because our identity, this is what I want to suggest, is that our identity, our telos, is to glorify God with our body and to glorify God with our life. And because that's where flourishing comes, is that when we're glorifying God the way that God intended for us to glorify him since Genesis 1, Genesis 2, like that's where human flourishing comes. That's where hope is. That's where life is. It's in trusting God with our body, with all that he's given us, and allowing him to write a better story for our life. And so, you talk about, Keith, like, do you think about women, dating women? I do believe that the Lord wants a better story for my life, but he determines when that is. And I just got to continue to be faithful with my life and glorify God with my life. And with that includes my sexuality. And the way that I do that is that, I'm abstinent and I'm being faithful with him in all that I do. And, like I said, I don't struggle with it nearly as much as I did when I was early on in life. But man, my telos is not my sexuality. That's not the goal, because that's death. My telos is to glorify God. So I just wanted to say that, to share that.
That's good. Yeah. What would you say to someone that says, well, God gave me this desire, so he would want me to be acting on it. He'd want me to be happy, I can't live like 100 years and not act on this, but you're doing it, right? You're being abstinent.
Well, people also have a desire to murder other people, and you can't walk that out,
sure.
And
right.
So I think, I've heard that before. But desires can also be corrupted. I mean, ever since Genesis 2, when Adam and Eve took part from the tree, all things were corrupted from that point on. I mean, in part, Christ has restored all those things. We live, I don't want to get too theological, but we definitely live under, a new way, new covenant, but our desires are corrupted. Everything was corrupted. Creation was corrupted. It all was corrupted. But the beautiful thing is that Jesus Christ brings redemption to all of it. He brings redemption to all of it. Not only the earth will he one day fully redeem and restore to perfection, even better than the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
but he also brings about redemption in your life and in my life. He redeems our desires. He
Yeah.
redeems our thoughts. He redeems our actions. So redemption is far greater than we would ever imagine without it, because of what we realize, what we've been redeemed from. So yeah, I mean, I can see, well, God gave me these desires.
Is that even right? Like, God gives you the desire? Is that even right to say? Or is it like...
I would say, yeah, man, whew, that's a good question. I would say that God knows, God knows what our desires are. I think God often uses our desires to carry out his greater will. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But I do believe that God does give us holy, healthy desires, but the enemy also corrupts our desires as well.
Yeah.
And so a lot of time, like if I have a desire, I'm like, Lord, is this of you? So I think it's something that you give back to the Father and say, okay, God, I'm feeling like you want me to do this. Is this true? Is this consistent with Scripture?
That's good.
Like, is this desire that I have, is it consistent with the Word? And if it's consistent with the Word, then I can follow through with that, right? So if the Holy Spirit gives me that desire, if I feel like the Holy Spirit is leading me to do this, I just need to make sure it's consistent with what God's Word says, because my life needs to come under God's Scripture, not, I don't take my experience and put it on top of Scripture. I set it underneath it, So I think that's a good move. It's like take, and what desires are not of the Lord and what they are when you apply it to God's Word.
Yeah. Good.
So
wow. Thanks for
helps.
sharing. Yeah, really good. What I always have guests talk about this, and would love to get your take on this. How dating is different.
Yeah.
Now that you're following Jesus, so you talked about you're practicing abstinence.
Yeah.
What would you say to that question?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, like I said, I think for a long time, I felt like it was never an option for me, but it is an option for me. If the Lord brings a female into my life, and there is that kindredness, and, I think sexual attraction is important, right?
Sure.
And if those things are lining up, man, then I'm going to date,
Yeah.
And I'm going to follow through with that. And I'm going to follow through with that faithfully. I don't think I ever really thought that was an option, 10 years ago. But I think as I've grown to understand God's sovereignty over my struggle, that is an option for me.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to throw that out. The Lord may want me to be married in my next year.
Yeah.
And the Lord will change those affections on his time. And so as I do that, I would say that, I'm pretty, call me traditional. I'm not going to date to find a wife. I'm going to know that she's my wife. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So like, I'm not going to go and, obviously I'm not going to get on an app. I'm just not going to do that. And I think that's okay. If you're in your 20s, I think that's okay not to do that. I'm going to push more against that maybe, but maybe called me old school, whatever. I don't care. But I know that whoever that is, it's not. And I say the same thing like to the guys that we didn't talk about dating on our hiking trip or whatever, but I would say the same thing to them. I'm like, look, like don't go to college to date girls. Like go to college, and if you're ready to get married, then go to college and pray to the Lord to let me find my wife. God, bring her to me. Yeah. And know that she's the one I'm going to marry. And not be like dating to figure that out. Like
bring her to me. That's good.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, just Lord, I trust you. Yeah. Like if you are sovereign, then I don't have to worry about that. You're going to bring her to me when you decide is best. Yeah. And so I don't need to go around and and figure this out. Like so for me, I mean that's just I'm gonna know. I remember I'm going to know that she's the one. Yeah. And I don't have to do all that dancing and all that kind of stuff. Just be like, all right,
That's good. That's what happened in before the fall. God brought Eve to Adam.
Come on, dude. Let's go, man. That's what I'm talking about. He did, right? I mean, he just said it. And the two of them became one flesh. Right. One flesh union, man. Yeah. Yeah. Which just affirms so many things about what we believe. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. So even just in the last 10 years, it sounds like your views on even being open to date has changed.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Do you think that if you never got married, like you'd be okay?
100%. Yeah. Because I said, there are greater goods. I believe this. None of this may be like really asinine to say, but there are greater goods that have come out of my life as a result of my struggle that have never would have come out of my life had I not struggled with what I struggle with. There are greater goods. And I totally believe that God stands behind both good and evil in a way that no evil happens unless there's greater goods that come out of that evil. And the evil, in order for the goods to happen, then the evil has to be there. And so even though God's not culpable for the evil, we can't blame God for it, but he stands behind it in such a way that there are greater goods that come out of the evil that takes place. But those greater goods have to be far weightier than the evil that happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there are greater goods that have come out of my life as a result of that suffering that have never would have come out of my life had I not gone through that. So I trust God with that. If that means I am, single for the rest of my life, it's because God has greater goods in the future for me. Yeah. And I have to trust him with that.
Wow.
The ultimate greater good is the redemption, is that God maximized his glory on the cross of Jesus Christ. And Jesus, the evil that happened to Jesus, the greater good that has come out of that is God's glory and our good. And redemption, the absolute beautiful redemption that is a result. I mean, Isaiah says that it pleased the Father to crush his Son. Why? Because we experience redemption. And we would never have redemption apart from the crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's amazing, man, what Christ has done for us, what God has done for us, So flesh that out. Like there are greater goods that will continue to come out of the suffering. And we have to trust God with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
wow. And this is the first time you're sharing your story, right? In like
in this setting, yes.
Type of way,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've shared it, I couldn't even tell you how many people I've shared it with over my life. I mean, it's
sure.
Probably over 1,000, I've always had faithful men in my life. I've always had healthy. I think that's important for someone who's struggling with SSA is that you have healthy, depending on whatever age range you're in, but you have healthy men in your life. I think that is incredibly important. And, most of the guys that I hang out with are all married. They're 10 years older than I am or 5. They've always been older than I am. I have a really good friend that I went to school with that lives here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But you got to have healthy men in your life. And so, for some reason, the Lord's just always put married men around me, but I've always made sure to have that. But,
yeah. Let's say you could talk to someone that's currently in same-sex attraction and they've never told anybody.
Yeah.
Or like they don't have men.
That's a great question.
What would you encourage them to
find like if you're going to a church or if you're in a community of believers or if you're not in a community of believers and maybe you're exploring faith, right? Find somebody that, I'm going to say find somebody that does have a relationship with the Lord and share that with them. But share it with somebody that you can trust. It's always hard in the very beginning to talk about it.
Yeah.
The older I got, the more easier, I've gone and spoken at conferences and I've shared it with teams and at those conferences because they had people in that conference that struggled with it. And so they need help. So the older I got, the more I just really don't care because I have so many men in my life that have been a help for me. But, I
feel like it kind of loses its power.
It does.
Over you.
100%.
Any sin, not just same-sex attraction.
100%.
Yeah.
The more you put it into the light, the less power it has over you, that the enemy has to shame you and to hold it against you.
Yeah.
Because you see God's faithfulness through other men and women, whoever it may be, but you see God's faithfulness. I have women in my life that I've shared it with and you see God's faithfulness through those people. And God, go back to Psalm 121 where the Lord keeps my going in and my coming out. And God has used people to keep me on the narrow path, and not to veer off of it. The power of prayer has been incredible in my life, and just being, having men saying, "Hey, how you doing? Like, how are your thoughts?" All those things, questioning those things. I mean, they have all permission in the world to do that, because I have nothing to hide. And when you keep things in the dark, that's when it can really fester and grow and become ugly. And that's why I'm so thankful that the Lord, early on in my life, at the age of 19 to 20, when I was in college, that the Lord said, "No, you need to share this. You need to share it," because it allowed it from really ever turning into anything else. So, yeah.
Wow. So just finding some people that you can you can see, like, okay, they actually have a relationship with Jesus. I trust them. Yeah. Let me pull a guy aside, or ask someone at the church, or just a friend, like, "Hey, this is what's happening in my life."
100%. Yep. Start there, and then just say, "Okay, Lord, who can I trust? Who do you have here that I can trust?" Yeah. And then you get to the place where it's like, I mean, I really don't, like I said, I don't even know who. I mean, I walk in, I'm like, "Oh, man, I'm sure they all know. They probably," and everybody knows, because I've just shared it so much with people, Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say for someone that's like hearing that, maybe someone's talking to them about it, like the receiver of that information? What can they do to help?
Yeah, man, that's another great question. Good night, Carlton. That's a great one. I think that person needs to be grace-filled. They need to have a lot of grace, right? I think, for the person that's sharing, they're being vulnerable and transparent. And I think their biggest fear is this person going to turn their back on me? Are they going to run? Are they going to share it with other people? Like, are they going to use it to hurt me? And so I think me, the receiver, needs to be cognizant of those things, that person may be feeling that way. So I need to be grace. I need to say, "Hey, look, hey man, I'm still here." 3 weeks later, "Hey man, I'm still here." Like, I'm not going anywhere. That information doesn't scare me, whatever it may be. It doesn't scare me. And so that's why I'm so thankful early on that the Lord put those people in my life, that information didn't scare them. And so be cognizant of that. Also, so be gracious, don't be afraid to ask hard questions, and because that person needs those questions. And then I would also say that you also need to be as gracious as you are. You also need to be as serious about sin. Because a lot of times we can be overly gracious and not serious about sin. And we need to be serious about sin as well too. And that's with anything. Like, again, I don't want to compartmentalize SSA, right? Because that's with anything. My struggle is no different from your struggle, right? For a long time, I compartmentalized it, but no, man, we're all called to be holy. And so, but I would say that the receiving person needs to be as serious about their struggle as they need to be. So there's kind of that balance, because if it's too much grace, it's like, "Oh yeah, no, man, I'm praying for you. Like, I get it." No, they need to be serious about sin as well too. Like, how are you doing in your thought life? What, if they're going out and living this life, then they need to start building up parameters and guards and helping that person say, "Hey, look, you're hanging out with them. Why are you hanging out with them? Yeah. Or you're spending too much, I mean, that's a whole another conversation. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
No, good. Yeah. Yeah. Really helpful. Hopefully that helps people that are listening.
Yeah, man.
Because it's you never know, like, you could be in a situation like that. I've been in situations where people have shared that with me, and I want to be equipped to help as best I can, right?
For sure.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks,
Keith. Man, absolutely.
Yeah, really great. I want to start wrapping things up. Just a couple of questions left. Do you have a Bible verse for your life, or this season of life, 45, that you'd want to share with the audience?
Yeah. So it's Luke 9, or I'm sorry, John 9. Yeah. And it's probably not one that your audience would be like, "Oh yeah, that makes total sense."
John
like, that
3:16.
Would be mine too. Yeah. John 3:16, Philippians 4:12, right? But it's 9:3. And so Jesus, the man born blind, comes up to Jesus, and this is how John writes this in verse 1, chapter 9 of John. He says, "As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, 'Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents that he was born blind. And so the Pharisees, like they're trying to, or the disciples, they're trying to determine the why. Like, why is he blind? Right? So what is the cause of his blindness, and who can we blame?
Yeah.
And Jesus answered him. So this encompasses everything that we've been talking about. Jesus said, well, it was not that this man sinned or his parents. So you can't blame his parents and you can't blame his sin. But he says, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. That's why.
Yeah.
So why is this man blind? It's because the works of God may be displayed through this blind man. And of course, Jesus heals his blindness, and God is glorified as a result of that. And so I think for me, it says a lot of things, but it says that God is providential over good and bad, although he stands behind bad differently than he stands behind good, and that God, all the good that happens is because of God.
Yeah.
But also, it also says that that God is glorified through our struggle, and his works are obvious through our struggle. And so we have to see our struggle differently. We have to see pain and suffering differently. We have to see it as a way to glorify God and as a way to show his works through our suffering. We have to point people to God, to Christ. And again, I go back to, that's why I believe that the Lord was deliberate with me, because this story, whatever, this life, right? God, it is to glorify him. That's the goal. That's the telos. And I don't do it perfectly. I do it imperfectly all the time. I sin every day. We all do.
Yeah.
It's impossible to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength perfectly.
Yeah.
So we all fall short of that every second. But so that the works of God may be displayed through this. And I want the works of God to be displayed through my life, though imperfectly. But I want them to be displayed through my life.
Yeah.
And yours as well too.
Yeah.
And everybody that's listening. So it's a great, that it just shows that God is providential over all things, and he uses all suffering and struggle to glorify him.
Do you think it's better what you're doing, living for Jesus, and you're so committed, you've been abstinent your whole life. Like, is it worth it, you think?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a no-brainer, man.
Yeah.
100%.
Explain that, why you're so confident in that.
Because there's life in that. There is, I use that word flourishing. There's a beauty in trusting God with our life. And is it worth it? Like, I don't think I don't think we have a word in the human language to describe how worth it is. I heard this a long time ago. Someone described that, I think I read it in a book or somewhere. I need to go back and write it down, but he said that even the words that we use to describe the goodness of God are in the negative. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they're not even in the positive of describing the goodness of God.
Yeah.
So for me to say, is it worth it? I think any word that I use is going to fall short of just how much I feel it and how much it is worth it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's hard to come up with a word to explain just how worth it is. But because everything else leads to death.
Yeah.
Right? And so if he leads to life, right? And everything else leads to death. If you follow through with it, whatever that is, you follow through with it, it leads to death. It culminates in death. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But all the way back to Genesis 3, Jesus or God made a way that leads to life. Yeah. Genesis 3:15. But no, man. So yeah, because it's leading to, this is temporary. I mean, you go back in what Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 4, I think, where he says that this suffering is temporary. It's momentary compared to the eternal weight of glory that we will receive. Yeah. Wow. The suffering is momentary and light compared to the eternal weight of glory. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just thinking someone that's sat through this whole episode, now over an hour,
Keith seems so confident, in his like what he's deciding, and it must be like so hard. And for me, it's like, man, emotional, thinking how you've navigated it, and being willing to come on and share and be vulnerable. So I just felt led to ask you, like, you think it's all worth it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
that's great. Last thing, we'll wrap up with this, Keith. Really have enjoyed this a lot. So let's say there's single men specifically that are listening, regardless of what their struggle is.
Yeah.
What would you want them to take away if they don't already know Jesus? Like, if they're like exploring, someone texted them this episode, popped up on their feed.
Yeah.
They don't know Jesus right now.
Yeah.
They didn't grow up in church.
Yeah.
What would you want them to take away?
Yeah. I don't say this like flippantly, but because I think a lot of people can be like, oh, well, he's this, and you can, but I'll say this: he is faithful and he is trustworthy. I'll go back. I'll just read this real quick. Psalm 121.
Yeah.
Which just the psalmist, right? I think it's like Asaph or whoever, but anyhow, he says this: I lift my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand, which means he's your protection. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. And that, if I could, I don't know that I need to say anything more, but that he is faithful to keep you and he is trustworthy. Yeah.
Wow. Really good, Keith.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Wow. Thank you, Carlton.
Really have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And grateful that God's allowed us to stay in communication these last few years, and looking forward to what's to come too. Absolutely, man. 100%. Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate everybody tuning in to this week's episode. If you think Keith's story would impact a friend or a family member or someone in your life, I'd love for you to text them the link and tell them, hey, check out Keith's story. Check out the Single Man podcast. I think it'll really encourage you. And thank you for tuning in, and hope you have a great rest of your Friday. This has been Carlton French. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Single Man podcast. If someone you know would benefit from this week's episode, I'd love for you to text them the link and invite them to listen. You never know how a simple invitation could change someone's life. We'll be back next Friday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, with a new episode. Until then, check out the video version of the podcast on YouTube, and you can engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.